everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Cassie Elle Talks. Today we're taking a look at a very cool two-player micro card game that is only made up of 18 cards. It is part of Button Shy Games' Wallet series, and it is called Ahead in the Clouds, designed by Daniel Newman. In Ahead in the Clouds, both players are industrialists in a land called Empacta. In Empacta, only the wealthy can afford clean air. What you're trying to do is collect and convert resources to keep your business going, and to also provide the people of Empacta with clean air. The game ends after 8 rounds have been completed, and the player at that point who has fulfilled the most contracts is the winner of Ahead in the Clouds. This game is really fantastic, and I am very excited to share it with you. So let's go ahead, take a look at Ahead in the Clouds. Okie dokie, y'all, welcome to Ahead in the Clouds. In this game, players are collecting resources by activating buildings, and will then turn in these collected resources to fulfill contracts. Before the game begins, you'll need to have 8 coins available, and these coins are used to keep track of who fulfills which contracts, as well as keeping track of what round it is. In the beginning of the game, each player selects a habitat card, and this is their habitat for the rest of the game. We have blue and we have red. Each player will also select if they would like to be heads or tails. This is how they'll keep track of who fulfills which contracts throughout the game. There are 7 different types of contracts that a player may fulfill, and the way a player fulfills the contract is by turning in the resource that the contract requires. For example, down here, this contract requires 6 oxygen. This contract will require 6 hydrogen. There are 4 different resources in the game: water, stone, hydrogen, and oxygen. Both players are given 1 of each type of resource, and these resource cards all have these numbers on the edge of them, and they are double-sided. The numbers go from 0 to 7, and this is how players will keep track of what resources they currently possess. At the beginning of the game, nobody has any resources, so everyone places these cards in front of them with the 0 closest to them. The rest of the cards here are building cards, and they're put off to the side so both players can see them. Each building, when activated, provides the player who activated it with a resource. For example, the vapor condenser will provide the player who activates it with 2 water resources. The player who activates the hydro splitter is able to take 3 water resources and convert them into 2 hydrogen and 1 oxygen resources. The last card is the blimp card. The blimp card is used to keep track of the rounds. You place a penny at the beginning of the game on the number 1 spot, and at the end of each round you move the penny off to the next round. The blimp card is up here off to the side, and 1 of these pennies is placed on it, and you now have all the cards set up, and you're ready to play the game. In Ahead in the Clouds, you're trying to be the player who fulfills the most contracts. On your turn, you may perform 3 actions to help you fulfill these contracts. The first action is activate a building. The second action is disconnect a building that is connected to your building. And the third action is called Cloudburst, which disconnects all buildings from everything in play. Now, the first action a player can choose to do is activate. And to activate a building, the building has to be in play. Now, at the beginning of the game, no buildings are out in play. So the first player may connect as many buildings as they can hold to their habitat to get those buildings in play. Connecting buildings is an action that is free and does not use up one of your 3 actions that you may do on your turn. Each habitat can hold up to 3 buildings, so I'm going to connect 3 buildings to this habitat. I have now connected 3 buildings to my habitat, so I am going to take my first action and I'm going to activate a building. I activate first the vapor condenser building, so I earn 2 water resources. I take my water resource card and I rotate it so the 2 is facing me, and now I get to do my second action. I am allowed to repeat actions, so I choose to activate again. This time I activate this building, the dust reclaimer building. The dust reclaimer provides me with 2 stone resources. I rotate my stone to show I have 2 now, and as the first player in the first round of the game, I only get 2 actions. So I've now activated, and then I activated again, so I pass turn. Before I pass turn, however, if I had enough resources to fulfill a contract, I could have done so. Fulfilling contracts is a free action, just like connecting buildings is a free action. Now it is my opponent's turn, and they get to choose 3 actions. First, they connect their habitat for free. Next, for their first action, they choose to activate the dust reclaimer as well. They earn 2 stone resources, and now they can do their second action. This player wants to activate the vapor condenser building. What's special about building placement in Ahead in the Clouds, however, is if an opponent would have to travel from their habitat through your habitat to activate a building, you get a resource for them coming through your habitat. The resource a player may earn is shown on their card here in the corner. If red comes through the blue habitat, blue earns 1 water resource. Now red does not want to give me that resource, so he chooses for his second action to Cloudburst. Cloudburst takes all the buildings in play, including habitats, and resets the board. Red chose the action Cloudburst to reset the board because the disconnect building action is only allowed to be used on their own habitat. So if they wanted to use a vapor condenser and didn't want this player to earn that extra resource, the only way to detach the building from their habitat is to Cloudburst. After the Cloudburst occurs, the player who chose the Cloudburst action finds a card that has the swirly icon in the corner and flips it around. Now that the Cloudburst has finished, this player gets to do 1 more action because they've activated already, and then they Cloudburst. So for free, they first place their habitat and place buildings connecting to their habitat. They've connected 3 buildings for free, and for their third and final action, they choose to activate the vapor condenser. They earn 2 water resources, and they have now done 3 actions and pass turn. It is now also the end of the round, so we move the penny up 1 more space to show it is now the second round. Now that it's the first player's turn, they get to do 3 actions. The game continues back and forth like this, and eventually a player is going to have enough resources to fulfill a contract. They would reduce their resources accordingly, and dependent on whether they were heads or tails, they would place the penny on the contract that they completed. At the end of the 8 rounds, whoever has fulfilled the most contracts is the winner. If there is a tie for contracts, whoever has the most resources is the winner. Now there is one more thing to the game, and it happens at the end of the 3rd, 5th, and 8th rounds. At the end of these rounds, a blimp passes by and requires each player to give up resources. At the end of the 3rd round, the players have to give up 1 resource. At the end of the 5th round, each player has to give up 2 resources. And at the end of the 8th round, each player has to give up 3 resources. Those resources can be any kind, and they can be mixed, matched, or the same. If a player doesn't have enough resources to give up to the blimp, they lose a contract. So it's important to keep track of what round you're in and how many resources you have to make sure you don't lose any of those hard-earned contracts. And that's Ahead in the Clouds from Button Shy Games. So that was Ahead in the Clouds from Button Shy Games. I think that this game is fantastic. I liked how few cards are used in the game, but there's a lot of thinking going on considering how small of a game that this is. I'm not a huge fan of having to provide your own coins, but I know the Kickstarter is going to have a pledge level where you can back to get some punch-out tokens so you don't have to use your own coins. Also, so you know, this wallet is the prototype wallet. The game Ahead in the Clouds is going to have its own special wallet that is going to be a color that is appropriate and is going to have its own print. I really liked a lot of the buildings, especially the hydro splitter, because I mean it takes water and splits it into its proper hydrogen and oxygen elements, and it's funny because it's 2 hydrogen, 1 oxygen. And I just thought that was, you know, a nice way to include science in the game. I also like the blimp card and how at the end of certain rounds you have to give up resources, so it gives another layer of tracking for players to do to make sure they don't have to give up any of their contracts. All around, I thought this game was really great, and if you think that you'd like the game as well, you can check out the links down below. The game will be hitting Kickstarter in October 2016. If you like this video and you'd like to see more of my videos, please like, share, and subscribe. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter, and you can also find me at theindygamereport.com. Thanks for watching. That's Cassie Elle signing out with Ahead in the Clouds from Button Shy Games.